Welcome back. We are doing our Liberty Bowl preview today, joined by Mason Choate of hogbeat.com. And sorry, Quentin Mills, once again, you get him. Mason, what's going on?
Not much, guys. Out here at a duck camp here in Brinkley, Arkansas. Figured I'd make my way up here because it splits it about halfway between, not a little over halfway between Fayetteville and Memphis. So I don't have to be staying in Memphis because who wants to stay in Memphis? So I'm here in Brinkley, and getting in the woods, going to deer hunt this evening.
That's what I was going to say. It's better than staying in Memphis.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to take a detour because originally it was going to be Todd Smith on here with this, but since we've got Q is a resident Gators fan, diehard. These two coaches in Billy Napier and Sam Pittman started off the season as your 1 and 2 short shots to be fired. Both very similar seasons as far as record goes. However, you felt like throughout the ending of the season, Florida kind of did some things that were going in the right direction, whereas Arkansas looked like they were kind of just treading water in place. And I'm interested to hear your take on the decision to keep Sam Pittman and what you think that looks like here in the interim, and then anything you want to throw in, whether it be Jaden Ball, the former Arkansas flip, going to Florida and then setting the world on fire. Just kind of the parallel of those two programs and how Arkansas is going to look forward to Sam Pittman in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it there with the kind of trajectory of both programs towards the end of the season, and Florida went one way and Arkansas kind of went the other. And the other thing with Florida is you got that young just group of core players. You mentioned Jaden Ball, also the quarterback, his name's slipping, DJ Lagway. And so, that's exciting to build around. If you're a fan, that's exciting to think about. For Arkansas, you have a few things like that, but you also just lost 20-plus players to the transfer portal, and a good handful of those were starters. Some were pieces that maybe didn't start, but you were looking forward to having in the future. And so that was tough, but they're sticking with Sam Pittman because they felt like they saw improvement. I mean, obviously you were 4-8 in 23, and then you go 6-6. They improved. Maybe not to the level that fans wanted them to be. And it just, for me personally, what I think, I expected more, if you wanted to keep Sam Pittman. But at the beginning of the season, I was saying at the same time, I felt like a good 5-7, he probably kept his job. And, at a point in the end of the season, if they went 5-7, I think he might have also kept his job. And so that's about how things went. They went 6-6, and you win the Louisiana Tech game, and that saves his job. But I don't know, guys. I mean, as far as the trajectory of the program, it's hard to have 20-plus scholarship transfers every year and get excited about that. But what they've done in the portal so far has been better than what I expected, to be honest with you. And Sam Pittman came out and said they had a lot of money to spend, and they have addressed some significant needs, especially on the offensive line. This is the most aggressive they've been as far as recruiting on the offensive line, I feel like, since Sam Pittman's been here. They got a ton of playmakers at wide receiver who, some of them unproven, but you hope that they come in here and they prove themselves. So the trajectory, you right now, it feels positive because of the commitments that you've got in the portal. But, before those started to flow in, it didn't feel positive. So it comes and goes in waves. If they lose to Texas Tech, then it's going to feel really bad. It's not going to feel great. So you really hope that you can beat Texas Tech, or at least, have an intriguing performance, maybe some freshmen like CJ Brown, Braylon Russell, I guess. Hopefully those guys can, do something that makes you excited for them in the future.
Yeah, that was my next question was how big of a game is this for Arkansas and Sam Pittman to go out and get this win? I know it's a little deflating playing in the Liberty Bowl. I feel like that's just kind of the place we get slotted when we're 6-6. But we've had some pretty good games. You think back, Kansas was the most recent to memory, and then Kansas State, we played ECU close there. So do you think this is going to be a good game, and how big of a win would this be for Pittman?
I mean, it would be a big win for them as far as creating momentum going into the offseason, which is something that you didn't have after you lost to Missouri to end the regular season, and then you lose all the players to the portal. They've generated some through bringing in players from the portal, but last year you obviously didn't have any momentum because you were 4-8. So that would be positive. You know, when it comes to these bowl games, and we know that a lot of the fans don't care about it, and it's when you have players entering the portal or opting out or whatever it may be, that makes it less interesting as well. But the thing that you can do with these bowl games is why not just let's go out here and have some fun with it, run some crazy plays. You know, hopefully we see a lot of offense in this one because Texas Tech defensively, if you just look at their numbers, they're awful. But then on the other side for Arkansas, it's interesting because who's going to play on offense? So, but that's what's going to be fun about it. I hope that it's high scoring. I mean, if we get out there and it's like a 10-3 football game and I'm standing on the sideline and it's wet and it's not fun, then it's going to be another situation where it's like, here we go. We're in Memphis again and nobody wants to be here, but hopefully they'll have running water this time. Cause in 22, they did not have running water in the city of Memphis. So we'll hope that we have that.
Mason, kind of staying with the bowl game theme, outside of Taylor Green, obviously he's the X factor, right? If he's running around, if he's actually making reads throwing the ball, it's a different team. We saw that throughout the season. Outside of him, Jackson's gone for the game. Armstrong's not playing. Several transfers on the line. Who do you expect or who are you looking for, I guess, to say step up in a big way, offensively or defensively, to maybe make a game, pivotal making play or, a good stance and get Arkansas this? Because from my standpoint, this is an Arkansas must win, can't lose for that progression and motivation and kind of going into the offseason that you talked about.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting because of so many new faces on offense, and it's hard to really say exactly what it's going to look like because I want to say, Isaac TeSlaa is going to have 10 catches because he's the only guy to throw it to. But then Tyrone Broden comes back to practice. So that you throw him into the fold, but later on in the season, they weren't throwing the ball to him because he didn't catch the ball. And so that does he step up? A guy that I'm really interested in is true freshman CJ Brown. I watched him a lot at Bentonville. He did everything all over the field, not just, as a receiver. He was making plays in special teams. In fall camp, he was getting some legit first team reps. He was a top 6 wide receiver on the team, and things just didn't go his way in the regular season. But I think he could have a good game. Monte Harrison, the former pro baseball player.
I was about to say, did I see that Monte was on the depth chart?
He's starting. He's listed as a starter. So, but that was also before.
As old as I am.
That was before Tyrone Broden came back into the fold. They didn't have Broden on the depth chart, and obviously, if he's with the team, he should be starting, I would think. So that you have that running back. We'll see. Braylon Russell, I think he should have a good game. I hope that Rodney Hill has a good game. I believe that he deserves it. He's battled injuries this year, had a really rough situation with his agent coming out of Florida State. That's a guy that deserves to have a good game. Rodney Hill, because then you also lost Rashad Dominion to the portal. That's another guy you lost to the portal. But the offensive line is really the most interesting part, guys, because you lost your starting center, your starting right guard, and your starting left guard. You have your 2 tackles in Fernando Carmona Jr. and Imarion Harris, but if those guys get hurt, you don't have your backup tackles or walk-on.
Mason Choate's coming in at that point.
Yeah, well, it's going to be another former Wampus Cat maybe, Aaron Smith, who's a walk-on redshirt freshman. He might play, but and then at center, Brooks Edmondson, who was just awarded a scholarship after the regular season. He's been a walk-on, and I believe he will start at center. We'll see. Because Joe Moore is another guy who's kind of been a reserve lineman transfer from Syracuse who hasn't really played a lot. But I believe he would be the 6th man, Joe Moore. And then Keyshawn Blackstock at left guard. And Kobe Branham, the true freshman at right guard, who is out of Fort Smith Southside, I believe. I think he's a Southside kid And they look, everybody who has talked about Kobe Branham has said that this is going to end up being a really, really good football player. I'm getting vibes of just a true Arkansas Razorback who's going to end up being like a 2 or 3 year starter on the offensive line that, is just a consistent guy. Those are the vibes I get from Kobe Branham, but we'll see.
So a lot of youth.
Yeah. A lot of inexperience and youth that has the potential to do something, but I can also envision a game where like you get a lot of RPO from Taylon Green and Taylon runs the ball 20 times and when he throws it, it's just like Tesla and Broden catching it, but CJ Brown played 60 snaps and just didn't catch it. Like I could also see that happening, but we'll see.
So over at our website, collegefootballinsiders.com, defensive success rate for Texas Tech in the drop back, so passing situations, 42.8. That's good for 114th in the country. And then against the rush, 42.2, 72nd in the country. Arkansas has the number 2 overall success rate in rushing offense at 51.3% and number 17 in drop back. So you've got to believe that Taylon Green, if he can just get a couple of seconds behind this offensive line, maybe a couple of the weapons step up, they're going to be able to move the ball. But as Q said, no Armstrong, I'm assuming, no Jaquinda Jackson, no Luke Hass, he's gone. I feel like our whole tight end room is gone.
It is.
Can you fill us in there on the depth chart? Who is going to be playing tight end?
Well, Andreas Posca, he'll be there. If he hasn't done a lot this year, but he'll be the starter as far as I understand. And then Maddox Lassiter, who also, along with Brooks Edmondson, got put on scholarship after the regular season, a former Warren high school product there. So we know that the kids that come from Warren usually ended up doing pretty good for the Razorbacks. And Maddox Lassiter, he's been playing some fullback this year, number 47. I love it every time they get in I formation and he just blows somebody up. So he's a guy that deserves the scholarship, I think, him and Brooks Edmondson. So that's your tight end room. Shamar Easter, who people remember, a 4-star recruit, he has been playing some wide receiver. So we'll see if he plays wide receiver or if I don't know what they're going to do with him because they do this thing where they have a guy that gets buried on the depth chart and then they change his position to get his name in the news and people think that something's going to happen. Like, I don't know if y'all remember Landon Rogers, the 3-star QB. I think he went to Parkview. And then they changed him to wide receiver and tight end, just trying to get him on the field. It just never really worked out. But
it's like AJ Derby too.
Yeah, AJ Derby. But AJ Derby ended up being pretty good though at tight end.
Played tight end.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say you finished your thought there, but then flip over to the defensive side and let us know what defensive players we have left.
Yeah, so the big one, you're not going to have Landon Jackson, obviously. He's opting out for the NFL. But defensively, they have a lot of the familiar faces. You did lose, TJ Metcalf. You hate to lose a guy like that. Him and his brother went to Michigan, which is pretty big time for them. But you lose Brad Spence to Texas. But on the D-line, you're still got Cam Ball's going to be there. Eric Gregory's not going to play, so you hate to see that. He's opted out for the NFL. Kevy Rose, who's just an experienced guy but hasn't done a ton. I'm excited to see Quincy Rhodes get a start at defensive end. He's built a lot like Landon Jackson, 6'7". I think he might be officially listed at 6'6", but he's probably 6'7", 280. I'm excited about him and the future for him. And then Anton Jukaj, who is an interesting case now, the transfer from Albany. You guys might know about this, that they changed that JUCO rule or whatever it is. And so now Jukaj might get another year with Arkansas. So we'll see if that happens. Linebackers, Xavier Sori and Steven Dix are still there. Those are your starters. So you got to feel good about that. Anthony Switzer, I believe, is going to be able to play in this bowl as well. And then in the secondary, your guys who ended up being starters at the end of the year at corner, Keon Stewart and Hudson Clark, they're starting. Larry Worth, Jaden Johnson, you still got them at safety. So and then Denico Slaughter at nickel. So those are your familiar faces, those names that you know. So you feel good. If you're Arkansas, you got to be feeling good about it defensively, especially because you're going against a true freshman quarterback who it'll be his first career start for Texas Tech. Now, he's a former 4-star recruit. I believe he led the state of Texas in passing yards and also ran for 1,000 his senior year in high school. So not a scrub. And if it's anything like the 22 Bowl, let's just hope that he doesn't set every single record that a quarterback can possibly set against.
Now, Mason, Arkansas is always going to give up that big game. Somebody's going to have a great game against us. It always happens.
Yeah, but
we'll see.
Yeah, so defensively, I think you feel a lot better about at least just who you have there compared to what you have on offense.
All right. Well, before we let you go, final score prediction. Arkansas sitting as a 1.5 point favorite, total sitting at 52.5, which it dropped from 60. I think it hung around 60, 61 when it first opened up. So down at least a touchdown in most places. But what you got?
Let's go 38-35 Arkansas. I'm expecting points because just like points from Arkansas. Now, I don't. It's going to be interesting to see how much Texas Tech scores, especially with the true freshman quarterback. I believe they also lost both their tackles to the portal. Another thing we haven't talked about: Texas Tech lost both of their coordinators, so they got 2 interim coordinators. But it's a bowl game. It's postseason football. You let it all out there, lay it all out on the line. You have literally nothing to lose. The season is over after this. You have new teams after that. You have new teams in this game. Like your teams in this game aren't what you played with in the regular season. You have different identities, both teams. So it's just kind of unpredictable. And I lean towards Arkansas. I think Arkansas should win this game. And I think it should be a close game because I think these teams are pretty evenly matched, to be honest, as far as just weaknesses compared to strengths go.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us, Mason. Coming up next, we'll have Ryan Hyatt with Raiderland to give us an inside peek into the Red Raiders. Until then, we will see you soon. Welcome back to the Liberty Bowl preview. We are now joined by Ryan Hyatt with the Raiderland to get a temperature of the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who will be without their starting quarterback. But Ryan headed into the Liberty Bowl facing off an SEC opponent, not a great one, but my Arkansas Razorbacks. So let's just talk about the temperature of the Raiders and hear how are they looking forward to, what's their bowl week preparation look like for the Liberty Bowl?
Yeah, give us a Liberty Bowl or give us a great ribs in Memphis, whatever we got to do. We'll go down to Rendezvous or anything else. This game, any other bowl game right now, trying to figure out where teams are with the portal, opt-outs, guys coming and going, it is so much more difficult than 2 or 3 years ago. So all of what our sample sizes I think we used to look at for bowl games, we have to now compress, and we say, okay, does the coach value bowl games? Well, Joey McGuire values bowl games, and not just because he gets a nice little bonus, and buys his wife a new dress, and that's cool. It's a thing for him. It matters to him, and we've seen that in the last couple of years. This year, we look at Texas Tech and go, okay, who's in, who's out? Well, much fewer opt-outs than Arkansas at this point. They've lost a few guys in the receiving corps. Josh Kelly, top receiver, not going to play. Micah Hudson, big 5-star recruit last year, didn't play this year much, injured, hurt. He's in the portal, doesn't really matter. But the left side of the offensive line has pretty much been decimated by guys that are in the portal. So we have to, again, circle back and go, who's playing for Tech and who's not playing for Arkansas? I just look at this game and I go, Tech's got a lot more of their frontline guys right now than Arkansas does. And how's that going to translate from here?
Yeah, I jokingly put down here in the preview position, all of them transfers galore will look like a new team. We have 6 scholarship players returning on offensive line. Outside of that, we've been just obliterated by the portal. We've got several that are in and will not play wide receivers from Isaiah Satania. Andrew Armstrong's going to be sitting out for the NFL. Luke Haas, the tight end, he's gone to Ole Miss. So it's going to be pretty much a brand new wide receiving corps. You're going to have Isaac Teslaw, and then you're going to have the former MLB baseball player Monte Harrison, maybe Tyrone Broden. We'll see, but yeah, I'm surprised they haven't called me to come out and try out because at this point they're getting pretty desperate.
Well, and I'm going to say I kind of buried the lead a little bit, and people are going to go, well, why isn't Hyatt talking about quarterback? And if you're on the outside looking in, you're going to go Baron Morton, shoulder surgery, end of the season. He's not playing in this. True freshman Will Hammond getting the start. And a lot of people are going to look at that and go, that's got to be the biggest impact on Texas Tech. And I'm saying right now, I don't think it is. I still think it's the left side of the offensive line where you got a true freshman at left tackle, you got another squadman at left guard, and you're kind of piecemealing it together across that. But so for those who don't know, Baron Morton, shoulder surgery at the end of the year. Will Hammond, he had more passing yards than anybody in Texas high school football last year as a senior in high school. Came in, he got limited action, but he had a huge game late against TCU, trying to drive for a win, gets blown up on the last possession, fumbles while they were trying to position for a field goal, and then that was the end of that game. I'm here to tell you right now, Hammond is a much more multidimensional threat than Morton. Morton, because of injuries, was pretty much limited this year to passing. They couldn't run him that much. Hammond can run. I expect to see a lot more quarterback draw, speed option, run game out of Hammond. They don't care if he gets blown up. They can fix it in the offseason. So I think, I kind of buried that lead a little bit. I'm not saying Tech's better at quarterback, okay? I'm just saying it's not as big a down drop as a lot of people think with Morton being out and Hammond being in.
So a lot more of a dual threat.
Absolutely. Much more athletic.
So
hey, Ryan,
that's going to be
can I jump in here? One thing I want to know about that the offensive coordinator took the job to, I think, Florida Atlantic. Defensive coordinator got fired. So how do you think that's going to play in this game with both the coordinators not being there?
So you've got the wide receiver coach, who will be calling plays for Texas Tech. He was kind of the number 2 guy, very involved in the offense. I don't think it's going to affect it that much. Defensively, your linebacker coach is going to be making the calls on the defense. He was already involved pretty heavily with Tim DeRuyter, who got fired, in making a lot of the interior and back end calls. So this defense is used to him making the calls. I don't see a whole lot of football divergence on any of that, and most of these guys have been involved in it. So you look at both coordinators going to say, okay, that could be big, but the guys that are calling plays have been really involved in the communication chain up and down from press box to field level and back and forth. I don't think it's going to impact it that much.
So, Ryan, we've talked a lot about the offense, but the defense, we're looking at a Texas Tech defense that had 42.7% defensive success rate, good for 99th in the country. They were 114th against the pass, 72nd against the rush. How much of that defense is returning, and do you even want them to?
It's amazing they were that good watching them game to game. I'm sorry. They're human beings. They deserve credit. They're a bad defense. There's no 2 ways around it. It's a worse defense going into this bowl game. They're going to have to rely on their linebackers. Jacob Rodriguez, Ben Roberts, Ryan Curry. They really don't even have a true offensive outside linebacker on this defense right now after injuries. The secondary, if I'm Arkansas, that's where I try to attack. I try to go over the top. I try to burn them deep until you prove you can cover or not get a DPI. So this defense is not good. It's just I look at the Arkansas offense and go, are they good enough with the personnel they have in this game to take advantage of it? And that's why I think we're seeing the line where it is still right now. That people are looking at all the opt-outs on Arkansas and going, my God, have you seen the Tech defense? We could get 10 points on them.
Do you? Okay, finish.
I'm not talking about Arkansas. I'm talking about us.
You mean us?
I'm 55 years old. We could score.
Monte Harrison's not too far behind you. He's a starting wide receiver for Arkansas. Okay, finish this sentence. Texas Tech wins the Liberty Bowl because of what?
Culture right now. That really, I think, when we get into a lot of these games, the first thing I look at is go, okay, whose culture is better right now? Why are people leaving Arkansas? Well, they're either frustrated, they're not winning, whatever. Why are people leaving Texas Tech? They weren't good enough to play. They're getting out recruited in the transfer portal, and that's a topic for another conversation and another time on this thing. The next thing, I would just look at it and go, pardon me. I just think Texas Tech still has more components of the original team that they finished with versus a 6-6 Arkansas team. No more, no less.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 8 wins, that's impressive. The Big 12 proved that the Big 12 was a lot better than I think people going into the season were giving them credit for.
I think
you look at Colorado, BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State. You had a lot of teams there in the top 25.
The Big 12 is really good in the middle. The middle of the Big 12 was as good as any conference around the country. They might not have had a top 5 or 7 team, but the middle was good. You don't get credit for the middle. Nobody hands out medals for the middle. I should put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah. I was preaching that all season. I felt like there was a lot more parity from top to bottom in all the Power 5 or Power 4 conferences. And it wasn't just an SEC was going to dominate and run away with it. We saw it the other night with Tennessee. I didn't think Tennessee was very good. Proved to be true. Todd, you got one more question?
Yeah, a lot of the guys, Ryan, for Arkansas is the offensive line. I think the entire line is out for Arkansas. Do you think this is going to be, a very good athletic quarterback for Arkansas, but is this guy going to be running for his life on tomorrow night? I mean, are they going to really bring heat most of the game?
Great question. And that's where we get away from a coordinator deal and go, okay, what's Achu going to look like calling the plays on that? I don't think so. I think Tech will try to I don't think they'll gamble too much defensively. I think they'll try to play it a little bit middle and say, all right, what can you do against us in base? Then you adjust, then you go. And then if they can pin their ears back, we'll see something. But again, this is a Tech defense that's still not very good up front. Not all that. I want to get one thing in before we get out tonight, and this is something that's come to us within the last hour and a half since I was doing my live show. And it's Texas Tech running back Taj Brooks. He is in Memphis. He has been practicing. We have reason to believe he is not going to play. I don't think that's going to affect the outcome of this game that much. He's the all-time leading rusher at Texas Tech. He had a great send-off in the final home game. He, has been out there all week. We've been told he's been practicing, but how much, we don't know. But we got reason to believe that he probably doesn't go tomorrow night. Now, what does that mean? You got a really good freshman in Williams. Got a couple of different guys that they can run in there. But I am of the belief, based on who I'm talking to right now, that Brooks will not be a part of this game in a meaningful fashion. Might get a carry, might make an appearance, but don't be surprised if Taj Brooks is not in, and don't let that affect how you view this game from a point spread, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was what we were going to close with. Obviously, our projections have Texas Tech a very marginal victory here. This line has bumped around, from 3 to 3, I feel like the other way. The total went from 61 and a half down to 52 and a half right now. Over at VSiN, which I know you're a loyal VSiN subscriber, listener as well. These betting splits, 74% of the handle on Texas Tech right now as that line sits at -2 for Tech. Do you have a play here? What do you think is the best bet? Because I heard Murray and I think it was Humans today talking about the over.
Yeah, and I heard Paul Stone, who I respect very much, talking about liking Texas Tech, on the side and everything else. I tried to look at this thing fair value before, when it first came out. I thought it was probably about a pick. Over the last week or so, I thought it was maybe about a field goal. Texas Tech, with all the departures from Arkansas, I would be comfortable making that a 5.5. And I don't think it's going to go off at that. I think it's going to go off Texas Tech around 2.5, 3.5, as they're just now beginning to see what we've paid attention to for the last 2 weeks is the opt-outs on Arkansas and everything else. The public's slowly coming around to that. Yeah. I gave a score on my show tonight, 38-17 Tech. These bowl games, whatever. All right? Put a number out, hang a number. I think Texas Tech will play harder, longer, and I like Tech 38-17.
38-17. Mason Choate with hogbeat.com. He was on right before you. He said 38-35 Arkansas. So he's thinking shootout.
And you could be right there. You could be right there.
The winning total right there, though, 38.
Yeah, 38, and he could be right there because, again, I don't know what that Tech D-line is going to look like against that Arkansas. We have no way to game that.
Yep. And we have no way of knowing how these skill position players. I mean, we're down 2 running backs in Dubinion and Jaquinda Jackson.
I would much rather try to figure out what Tech and Arkansas and baseball would do in a 3-game series in February and try to figure this game out.
I agree. I think it's going to be a fun game. The Liberty Bowl has been for Arkansas fans. We had the thriller with Kansas where Jaden Daniels, or I think it was Daniels at the time, they came back. It may have been Bean, though. They came back, and we were up by 24 points. They came back and made it a game. And then ECU, we went to overtime. That was the coldest game I've ever been to in my life. Sure enough, it went to overtime. We were chugging whiskey and coffee and then lost our car in the confines of what's left of Memphis, Tennessee.
See, now you're too young to remember, when I was at Texas Tech, this was a conference game. When I was growing up,
showing your age a little bit.
I'm showing my age, baby. That this is a big deal, and that for a lot of Tech fans, I don't think it resonates the same way with Arkansas fans, but for a lot of Tech fans, still, this is a big deal. That to be able to play Arkansas, because you didn't beat Arkansas very much when you were Texas Tech in the Southwest Conference in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You didn't beat them very often, and it's still a big deal around West Texas if you get a chance to play the Hogs. And I don't know that it translates that way to the Arkansas fan base because they never gave a damn about Tech in the Southwest Conference, and they sure don't now. Not that I don't know that plays anything into the number we're talking about, but just from a perspective on the fan base, I think Tech fans care more than Arkansas fans do. But they're all going to be on Bill Street tonight, baby.
Yeah, I have not heard of a single Razorback fan that I'm friends with going to the game. So if that tells you how Hog fans travel, and typically we do. I mean, we've gone to Buffalo for a basketball game. We've gone to Las Vegas. I mean, we travel. So 2 hours from my front door to the Liberty Bowl, and ain't nobody signing up to go to Memphis right now, I'll tell you that much. Ryan, I appreciate you joining us. We'll air this here later on tonight, but for Mason Choate and Hog Beat, Todd and Q filling in earlier today, Ryan Hyatt with the Raider Land, we appreciate it. And I got to say it one time while you're on air, woo pig.
I knew you were going to do it. Wreck 'em.